One of us has to go home and change. Hello, welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yi.
And I'm Chris Yi.
And today we have Who Wore It Better? This is where we compare similar games and we decide which one we prefer.
Games, got it. Yeah. We always pick a category. We talk a little bit about the history of that category. Then we do some comparisons head to head. 2 games enter. Every game leaves because you enjoy the games that you want, even if I like the other one more.
Games don't even walk, Chris. They don't come or leave. They just exist in this deep sphere of mental brainness. All right, today we're going to be talking about word games.
Yeah, word games. I like word games.
And I think specifically word association games. So we're not talking about spelling games like Scrabble. It's weird because we were like making this list of word games and we were trying to decide, there's so many out there, but specifically word association. So games where you get some sort of clue or some sort of word or something that will then make you try to either come up with a word or connect a word together.
Yeah, there's tons out there, clue giving, like those types of things. We narrowed it down to a few comparisons we want to do. Mm-hmm. But something I love doing is pouring into a little bit of the history behind, like where do word games come from? And so doing different reading and stuff, I guess the earliest thing that you could kind of plausibly say was like a word game would kind of be like riddles.
Sure. So where's the riddles? The Sphinx riddle, I think, is the oldest one that I came across. It was from 429 BC. And the riddle is what goes on 4 feet in the morning, 2 feet at noon, and 3 feet in the evening.
Yeah, good old Oedipus Rex. Oedipus never did anything wrong. Oedipus is all right in my books. So, so there's that classic riddle. There's riddles throughout the Lord of the Rings, or The Hobbit. There's like a great scene where Bilbo is battling wits with Gollum and stuff. And it's just fun to see that, just since people have created language, they're like, what if we play with it?
I mean, there's even that idea of like the troll under the bridge, and you have to pass his riddles to get past the bridge,
right?
Or pay the toll. You know what I mean? Those kind of things.
Sphinx being the same in that epic, in that poem.
Another really ancient thing is this idea of word squares, where basically you have a word across the top and a word across the side, or like the word top and down, and then progressively as you do, the next word matches the next word, and they just kind of like create these word square grids.
To prevent confusion, yes. I included here, I etched my own example of one of the most famous word squares of all time. This is what's called the Sator square, basically, right? So people came up with palindromes. People love palindromes. People love word squares because they're two-dimensional palindromes across and down. So Sator both across the top and in the first column. So Sator Repo Tenet Opera Rotas is a famous example because it actually has a meaning, right? If you read this, it could be read as the sower plows the field, holds the wheel to plow the field with care, kind of a thing. And then then people are like, yeah, but if you read it backwards, if you have a different interpretation, then really what it could also mean is that the fate of man is determined by the supreme being. So it's a duality. It means both, the person chooses what to do, but then God has the bigger plan for the individual.
And this became so famous that people would etch this on things. They'd stick it on buildings and stick it in interesting places.
Just because they could.
Because it's interesting.
And then it started to have extra associations with it. It must have a religious or theological value to it because palindromes confuse the devil was the superstition of the time. I tied a yellow onion to my belt. And so if a palindrome confuses the devil, imagine this 5x5 word square, what that'll do to his brain.
I mean, it confuses me, so I could not make one of those, that's for sure. Okay, speeding forward to around 1600, the Karuta, I guess, was a card game where you had parts of a poem basically in this stack in the middle, and you'd flip one over, and then you'd have a bunch of other cards face up, and you'd have to make a connection, an association between this poem or this quote or something. You'd basically have to finish it. Or find a connection to another piece of that same poetry.
Yeah, Japanese card game going back to the 1600 approximately. And it's just interesting that that's then become published in multiple different versions. If you look on the Board Game Geek page for Karuta, you see the Anpan Man version, which is Super cute. So going to about 1875 is the first time that I saw anagrams in a packaged sold thing. So I'm sure that anagrams existed beforehand, right? Let's take the letters of somebody's name and twist them around and rearrange them so it spells attributes about them.
Something else, yeah.
Christopher Yi can become an anagram for charismatic, handsome hair.
I don't think you know how letters work.
Whatever.
We're talking about cinema turns into Iceman.
What's your favorite anagram for Christopher Duke Yi? Put your comments below.
I'm actually really curious about that.
Yes.
Okay, so an account of Peter Cottle's visit to New York was basically this story that had holes in it, and as it was presented before an audience, the audience would shout out words to fill in those holes, right?
Yeah, so this was like a near turn-of-the-century game, and so, yeah, children's kind of like fill in the gap. Yeah. Kind of when I look at it, I'm like, oh, there's like a precursor to Mad Libs, basically.
Yeah, which I love.
You do enjoy Mad Libs a lot.
I do a lot.
Jumping ahead really quick here to 1958, Mad Libs invented. I didn't think that this was a 50s thing.
Yeah, I guess I assumed it was older, but then...
I assumed it was kind of newer. I don't know, like an 80s party game or something like that. But it makes sense.
Huh.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to think how old I thought it was previous to the search.
Let's jump back to 1913, though. The New York World newspaper was the first publication that created the crossword puzzle. And so there was basically a little bit extra space in the fun section of the New York World, and the editor for it was like, oh, we've just figured out how to have like an easy boilerplate like grid print imprint. So he was like, let's make a puzzle off of that. And so he basically came up with the first crossword puzzle, which has since become a staple of newspaper sections.
It's so interesting that in my mind, I think, wouldn't that exist before? Wouldn't some have had created that concept before? On handwritten, I guess, sure.
Right, yeah, but like you take that, you gamify it a little bit.
You gamify it into, the rows and the columns. I always got crossword puzzles confused with word searches as a kid. I loved word searches, and I hated crossword puzzles because I had zero vocabulary. I'd still have 5% of the world's vocabulary. No, I don't even know. My vocabulary is not amazing. But word searches were invented in 1968 by Norman E. Gabat.
Yeah, so when you think foundationally, a word search is easier to do. The words are already there. Yeah. You just got to circle them. So in my mind, they probably existed before, right? Kind of like chess is easier than checkers. So checkers probably came out first, right? But you don't, but just because something is simpler doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. And that's the case here with word searches. 1968.
It's interesting to see that these came out, these kind of games came out in my parents' lifetime.
In 1913, 1875?
No.
The account of Peter Cottle?
The 50s and 60s.
Oh, that's what you mean.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and when I think of
My mom was around with the Sphinx.
Well, so... if you're watching, you're a lovely lady. 1972, Boggle. This is an interesting one because that's also, like you said, in our...
Speaking of my mom, this was one of her favorite word games, actually.
Yeah.
Boggle.
This one's a little bit more on the spelling side of things, but, you shake up the dice in a little 4x4 grid, and you try to come up with as many as you can. And this one I kind of consider actually a really solid game.
Yeah.
Better than Scrabble as a game.
Especially for a mainstream game back in the day,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see why people would really get into tournaments of this and stuff, But it's funny then because from this point on, there's just been a big explosion of party games. And this is not an all-inclusive history, just ones that I found
just interesting, little interesting facts. Okay, so let's get to our Who Word Better comparisons.
Okay.
First, we're going to start off with is Codenames versus Just One.
So we're starting with kind of more modern ones here.
Yeah. So Codenames is a game where two teams have a little grid, and it basically says, which team's spies are associated to words. So I have red words, you have blue words. There's an assassin that nobody wants to pick, and then the rest of the words are just kind of neutral things. And you're giving one-word clues to try to get your team to guess your words based on that clue. So my clue could be Archer 3, and I would want you to guess 3 words that all have to do with Archer that are mine and hopefully not yours, and definitely hopefully not the assassin.
Yep. Versus the game of just one, which is fully cooperative. Everyone is playing together as a team, sitting around at the table. One person has a clue word that they don't see. Everyone else sees it and is trying to get them to guess it. And everyone can write just one word. And after everyone does that, the clue guesser has to close their eyes or turn away. Everyone else is going to show the word that they wrote to all of their teammates. And if any one word is written more than one time, it's eliminated because each clue can only be used just once. Mm-hmm. That's why the game is called Eliminate Duplicates.
Yes, exactly. Like categories.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, between these two.
Between these two, I would pick Codenames out of the two. I think in the end, Codenames is a more robust game. I think coming up with those clues is very interesting, and then discussing with your team, trying to figure all that. Whereas I feel like just one is a, what do I think someone else isn't going to think that I think that I'm going to write that you're not going to write? See, so,
yeah.
I enjoy Codenames more.
I think there's a little bit more to just one than that, but it's funny because these two are both games that I think almost everybody could own. Right? Mm-hmm. And for some people, these are like their favorite party games, and they are just not for me. They're both very solidly good. Both like sitting at a 7, maybe a little bit higher than that. And so I'm also actually going to pick Codenames.
Really? Yeah, I thought you were going to pick Just One.
No, Just One's fantastic. Just One's a game that I think everybody should own, right? It should be in your arsenal. But if you were to ask someone who was like very crafty and very hands-on, like what's your favorite tool in your garage, they would probably say something like cool, like reciprocating saw or welding torch, like something like awesome. But if you're the average person, you should probably own a screwdriver. Like Just One to me is like a screwdriver. Every household should have that. Not every household needs a reciprocating saw or a welding torch. You know what I mean? So are you
saying that Codenames is more of a reciprocating saw or a welding torch?
It's like a saw. It's just, there's a little bit more to it, and I like the team aspect. It's funny because both of these are games that people can observe if they're not really into playing games, and then I've seen people after a little bit, they're like, yeah, but now I'm kind of playing, and I think that's easier to do that with Codenames.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you can just be part of the guessing team.
You can be part of the group. You can have your little side conversations. You can laugh at the associations.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Decrypto versus Message from the Stars. So Decrypto is a game where you have two different teams, and one person in each team is giving clues to the other team. Giving clues to their team, trying to work together. However, the other team is also hearing their clues. And so they're trying to decode the order of the words and then eventually the words that are in that order. So you have to give, like, good hints, but not too good a hints.
I like how you emphasize the word decode, because the name of this game is definitely Decodo.
Are you going to decrypt it?
Yes.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
My brain was thinking crypt. Word association games, I'm terrible at them. I was like, decrypt, like remove a dead body from a crypt.
Decrypt, that's what it means, clearly. Message from the Stars is a game where one person is trying to give clues to their teammate. Now, this is more of a spelling game, but it's actually less of a spelling game and more of a math logic game. But they are also at the end of the game trying to get people to guess secret code words that on a card they have to get. But they are.
So you're saying we're cheating, that this is a spelling game?
This game is everything.
It's everything.
Everything, everywhere at once. So what the alien player does, the one player who knows 3 different letters that have a positive value, 2 letters that have a doubling value, and 1 letter that has a negatizing value, are behind this player screen, and they'll write a word like Annapolis, right? And then they'll also give a number associated with that word Annapolis. And so if the letters A are a +1 each, and if the letters N are a +1 each, then that's 4 right there, A, N, and an A. And then let's say that the letter S is one of the doublers. So, in that case, I would write the word Annapolis 8. And I would slide it out to the other players on the team. And they have to start trying to figure out round after round which letters are adding numbers, which ones are doubling, and which ones would make it a negative.
So it's like a super deduction game.
It's very intensive.
Super deduction. Okay, between the two, I would 100% pick Decrypto. Okay. Because Message from the Stars exploded my brain. My brain went into the stars and was like, wow, there's aliens up here. I'm coming back to Earth and pretending I didn't see that.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
that's how my brain reacted.
Of these two, I'm picking A Message from the Stars.
Yeah.
I think this game is phenomenal. Now, both are great. This was actually one of the harder face-offs.
Decisions for you.
Because Decrypto has been a long time one of my favorite games.
I love Decrypto. I think that it's so clever to have to think a couple steps deeper when you're giving your clues. I love Codenames. I think that it's a fun game. I'm burnt out on it, but I still enjoy it. Like, I think it's a lot of fun. But my clues were often like too many steps deep for people, whereas it's like more obvious clues. Whereas Decrypto, you cannot be obvious. You have to like take those couple steps down.
I really like that because the game of Decrypto could last up to 8 rounds, and so if you are giving obvious clues, the other team will decrypt what your target words are very easily. And so it's that balancing act. I like that in A Message from the Stars, though. There is both the fact that you are trying to give words that give good numerical values so that your team can deduce what those different key letters are. But then at the end of the game, if the team's figured out what all the letters are, you're like, yes. Okay, also, all those words that I gave also have to make my teammates guess words off of this list.
Yeah.
And so that part becomes the word association part, and it just has a heck of a journey to get there.
It does, but it also gives you a direction to pull words from.
Yes.
Which I think is useful. So it's like a pro and a con.
It is, yeah.
With that. And I think that this pair up really shows, for me, that I prefer word association games versus spelling words, because I don't do well coming up with spelling. Like word spelling. I like coming up with word ideas.
And if you're not sure how to spell a word, you should absolutely, in A Message from the Stars, like Google it really quick.
Oh yeah.
And be like, oh okay, don't want to give that clue. That'd be pointless.
100%.
All right. So anyway, yeah. So there we go. A split in the choice here. Now the last comparison we're going to do here is going to be the classic game of Taboo, a longtime favorite that came out in the 80s, versus a more recent one called Banned Words.
So in Taboo, it is a party game where someone is trying to get their team to guess whatever word is in front of them. However, they have a list of like 5 or 6 words they're not allowed to say. So you may try to guess have your team guess milk, but you can't say cow, you can't say breakfast, you can't say dairy. You know, there's just be like a list of 5 words you can't say, and so you just have to be creative and come up with other words to give your clues.
In the game of Banned Words, which by the way looks like a adult After Dark kind of cover, which it shouldn't. That's not the way that it should look because it's just like Taboo. Anyway, in the game of Banned Words, you so first the opposing team gets to look at a card of 5 words that the other team is going to try to give clues for, and then they will have a minute to write down up to 20 words that they are going to say are banned. It's kind of like creating the taboo words. They then slide that card over to the team who is going to guess, but the clue giver doesn't know what the 20 banned words are. So if they have to start describing banana, and if the first words they say are yellow fruit, and the other team goes, oh, we wrote yellow and we wrote fruit. Now, even if that team guesses, if the guessing team gets banana from that, they score 1 point. But the opposing team has scored 1 point for each banned word used. So there's a lot of pressure in banned words. In Taboo, knowing what the taboo words are, it's still a struggle to come up with the right words, right?
It's funny because I feel like banned words is taboo and just one, like combined together.
Oh, that's a very good comparison. Yeah, competitive just one, basically, right?
Yeah, basically.
Don't use these words.
It ups just one.
Yeah.
Did I think that you think that I thought that I was going to write this word and say it out loud? Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're trying to come up with the most awkward way to describe banana, and at the end the other team shows their banned words. You're like, you didn't say yellow or fruit. So do you have a preferred between these two?
So I actually have not played banned words, but I think that it sounds amazing. I love Taboo. I love Taboo so much. This is an app that I have on my phone. My daughter and I play it in the car all the time. I love Taboo. But banned words sounds really fun.
I didn't realize that you hadn't played it until now.
I hadn't played it!
Oh, okay. No, we played it recently in the marathon or something.
Yeah.
So, I really enjoy banned words a lot. But I think for simplicity, I would recommend Taboo. Because I still think that's one of those great party games that holds up. But for the fun, the tension of it, I would choose banned words for myself. But what I would do, and we didn't do this when we played live, is that both teams should should be writing the banned words for a card simultaneously.
At the same time.
The rules as written is one team sees writes them out, slides the card over, then the team goes. Then that team looks at the words, writes on it. Like, you should do that simultaneous, because the fun part is playing it, and making both writing parts simultaneous doesn't take away from any of the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that little house
little
rule
tweak.
Yeah.
I think that sounds great. Well, there you go. That is Who Bore It Better. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Wendy Yi.
And I'm Chris Yi.
Have fun playing word games.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video on the Dice Tower. Hey, do you want to know what's going on with Dice Tower? Do you want to know about our events, our cruises, special things that we're going to do live here in the Dice Tower? Subscribe to Dice Tower Digest. Go to dicetowerdigest.com. It's a newsletter that we send out bi-weekly. We won't use your email for anything else. This is just to get you some information about the Dice Tower so you'll be up to date. Thanks for watching.